All right. Well, welcome to another Faith Horizons podcast. This and show. This is Nathan Sack, and today I'm with Mischelle Saunders-Gottsch.
Perfect.
Did I get it correctly?
You
We
did.
got it right.
Go, Nate.
Woo! Anyway, so Mischelle Saunders has been running for the past about 4 years a ministry called Altered Stories. And so, can you just tell us just a little bit about Altered Stories before we get into the backstory and just learn a little bit more about who you are and how you got there?
Yeah, thank you. There's a couple questions in there. I'll do my best here. So Altered Stories Ministry is a faith-based nonprofit that focuses on helping Christian women share their God stories so women around the world can hear them.
Awesome.
And so we focus on the evangelistic storytelling piece of a woman's transformational, redemptive God story. So there's a change that occurs when God comes in to the life of a woman in dire circumstances or, in other circumstances, and the woman's life changes, course correction. And so the ministry itself is there to bring glory to God through the stories, and it also helps a woman who's sharing the story heal.
Oh, yeah.
And the reciprocal side of it is for those who hear it, it helps them heal. And so there's a healing component that comes from the story.
So people can identify with the story themselves and kind of receive healing off of that. And then you're saying by sharing their story, the interviewee is being, is able to process and heal.
Yes, exactly. And I have a story which we can talk about later, but that is how I found healing, in addition to God sending the right people to me. But the bottom line is I, through my healing and sharing my story, felt like there needed to be a platform for women to do this, because I found I had nowhere to go and had a very difficult time trying to find a way to share my story because of the trust issues and things that I had.
Yeah.
So, but anyway, we've been headquartered in Overland Park in terms of our address location.
Cool.
We were at a location before COVID. And then after COVID, we had to move into more of a virtual and remote kind of ministry.
Oh, cool.
And so that's where we are right now, but we are in a propelling and regrowth mode. But we'll talk a little bit more about that. But anyway.
You're in transition, yeah.
Yeah. So we're in transition, and I founded the ministry with the help of many.
Wow.
Many, many, many.
Yeah.
And now, of course, we have focused more primarily on the podcast, the Altered Story Show that I host.
Yes.
Because that's the brand.
Right.
That's what reaches out to those that hear the stories.
Yes.
So we are definitely all about helping women heal, and we are there to help women tell their stories. So I do coaching.
Yes.
I do consulting. In addition to the actual story, and bringing that out from a woman who comes on the show. Typically, they're authors, they're in ministry. They have already been called to move forward with their stories.
Oh, wow.
Some of them, that's not the case. Some, it's a very scary thing for them, and they're feeling called, and this is part of the whole process of healing.
Oh, wow.
So it's an interesting dynamic. But did I answer all your questions?
I think you did. Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
All right. Okay.
I mean, just by listening to you now, I have more now. But anyway,
yeah.
So let's just get into a little bit more of your backstory before we kind of dive more into, Altered Stories. I mean, I didn't think, I have questions like, are you trying to create a community? Are you, but it we can get to that later. But so just tell us a little bit about your backstory and how did we get from where you are now, and then how did you get to where you are now?
Okay, it's a big story, but
Yes.
I'll share as quickly as I can. So I'm a childhood cult survivor. I came out of a cult.
Okay.
I was in the cult from the age of 7 to 12.
Is that like, does that have a denomination to it or a?
No. At the time that I was in it, my mom immersed herself into this home church, and
Okay.
the founder of that cult came out of Oral Roberts University, was a pastor, and got
Okay.
thrown out of denominations in Oklahoma.
Okay.
Okay. So he founded this cult group
Yes.
in Rapid City, South Dakota.
Okay.
Okay, that's where he was living. And at that time, my parents were living at a Air Force base.
Yes.
Okay. And so being part of that cult, which started out very innocently with a group of Christians
Yes.
that transferred into more oppression, more control, and more very unhealthy things. And so my experience was very difficult because I was at the age of 7, 8,
Wow.
9, 10, 11, and
Wow.
12. And my dad was not as, I guess, aware because he was serving and he went overseas.
Oh.
And so the bulk of what transpired was when he was overseas and my mom was with me
Was he
and my
working
brother
overseas,
and sister.
or?
Yeah, he was stationed overseas.
he was
in the Air
military.
Force.
Okay.
My mom was also, but she stepped out and became a stay-home mom.
Okay.
So anyway, bottom line is my mom didn't have discipling. She was a Catholic who became a Christian,
Yeah.
and she was not discipled well. She didn't really understand where she needed to go to be in a healthy place
Yeah.
to get the discipling.
Wow.
So she brought our family into this cult innocently through relationships that she had built, and she was invited in.
She wanted help.
Yes, she wanted community,
Yeah.
and she wanted to raise her kids. And my dad was not into any kind of organized religion or anything like that
Okay.
at that time. Okay, so being part of this cult, I saw all kinds of things and experienced myself some very difficult things. And
Wow.
so it wasn't just me, it was everybody else involved in this cult. There was all types of abuse. You know, we were alienated, we were isolated, there was abuse with children turning on their parents.
Oh, wow.
There was the founder who was stepping into relationships. He actually advised my mom to divorce my dad because my dad wasn't conforming and didn't want to be part of this group. And it led to very difficult things. Rebellion on my end, my brother leaving the family, my parents losing custody of my brother, my baby sister, you know, who didn't really understand, but, you know, just being exposed to some of these very odd meetings, some of the very bizarre agendas. This man, he really preyed on vulnerable people.
Wow.
And so there was very, very difficult things. We couldn't, you know, celebrate holidays. We had to hand out pamphlets. It was very legalistic. We couldn't watch TV.
Very rule-bound.
Yeah, it was very rule-bound. And then we
Yeah.
were not allowed to associate with anyone outside of our group. And then
that's terrible.
there was just a lot of that transpired.
Yeah.
And being a young girl
Yeah.
and looking for acceptance, I had to learn to be one way, to, you know, deal with what was thrust upon me as a child,
Yeah.
and then having to deal with what I needed to deal with in the normal, what you would call world,
Yeah.
where I was actually out with, you know, my friends who didn't understand any of it because I couldn't participate in events at school. You know, there was just a lot of different.
So the cult, I mean, the children that were inside the cult were still attending normal public schools?
Yeah, we were. Yeah, which
I
is
mean,
interesting
which is
because today you
interesting.
would think that it would be all homeschooled, right?
Yeah,
Or
yeah,
something like
yeah.
that. No, that made it, thank God, in a way, I think that was a
Yeah, I was
blessing.
going to say that kind of probably saved it.
Yeah.
Saved you,
It sa-
the worst damage.
I
Yeah.
think the worst damage of
Yeah,
it.
yeah.
And so there was sexual abuse, unfortunately. I found that out later on in life
Yeah.
as I went through the process of facing what I really encountered and what had come through and the effect it had on my life.
Yeah.
Okay, so through the process of leaving this group, my parents had to heal. They had to go through and figure out how we were going to go forward, because at that time my brother was no longer in the family,
Yeah.
and it was just me and my baby sister.
Oh,
And
okay.
so
Was your brother older? I'm assuming.
yeah, he was. Yes.
Okay.
And then my dad retired, and then he was stationed at Richard Gabor Air Force Base.
Oh, yeah, that's right
So
down the
I
street.
came, this is what's so cool.
Yeah.
I came to Missouri
Yeah.
with my dad and my mom and my sister,
Yeah.
and this is where God began to heal me,
Wow.
because I went to Belton Junior High. I
Oh,
was
cool.
there for a little bit.
Yeah.
And that was before then my dad officially retired, and then we moved, out of the Kansas City area. But the bottom line is I just squished it. I mean, I didn't
You have no idea what to do with it, so you have to just pack it.
I didn't
Right.
know what to do.
Yeah.
I didn't know how to manage it. All I know is that I was so grateful that my mom had made the decision to leave,
Yeah.
and that all these rules and all this that was still there lingering, even though my mom was still, she was moving forward, she had a difficult time really immersing herself back into some sense of normalcy. Kind of, you can
Yeah.
equate it to someone coming back from being overseas and fighting in the war.
Yeah, it's like PTSD.
I know my mom.
Yeah.
My mom she had to break out of that.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah, and my dad, he didn't really understand. But me, I just said, okay, forget about this. I'm not going to waste the rest of my life, my personality type. And I just said, I'm going to go forward, and I'm going to be God, and I'm going to live my life, and I'm going to, I felt like I was out of prison.
Oh, yeah.
So I was like ready to
Fly the coop.
Yeah, I was ready to do my thing.
Yeah.
So little did I know, though, the effect that had on me, really had on me later on in life.
Wow.
And so I had to actually undergo a stress management counseling
Okay.
kind of a journey. And I was taking Lexapro because I had a lot of nerve issues.
Yeah.
And I didn't understand why anxiety. And also, I was so performance-based. I didn't know. I mean, I always had to just go to the top. I mean, I just immersed myself in that. And that is like not the healthiest way to be. And I had a lot of fear, no trust, and I was definitely not ever going to be a Christian,
Wow.
ever. And so
At what age were you at that point? Like 18, 19 or?
well, I was at that time, I was in my 40s when that hit. Okay. And so I had,
So when did you divorce God?
well, I divorced God probably at the age of 16.
Yeah, because you had to.
Yeah, I divorced him.
Yeah, you had to. I mean, it was the only logical decision. I mean, in our head, that's why we logically, I can't deal with God anymore. He never saved me from whatever happened. Da, 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 I'm done.
I did not want anything to do with Christians. I hated Christians. And if you were weak,
Yeah.
I ran. Anybody that showed any kind of weakness or vulnerability or whatever, it was like, I'm going to, be my own God.
Wow.
I'm going to control my own life.
Oh, wow.
No one's going to control me.
That's crazy. All right. So speeding things up a little bit on that. So you're in 40s when you started to realize that, hey, I have to go through the process of of getting out of this?
I really realized that it had an emotional effect, mental health wise, and different things. And it was then God in His graciousness. I had I had a reaction to Lexapro, and it sent me panic attacks, and I was just
Oh my gosh.
palpitating.
So were you still living here at the time?
No,
then?
I was living in Texas.
You were in Texas
at that
okay,
time,
okay.
and then I went through 3 to 4 months of counseling, and it was at that time when I discovered that what I had went through was considered to be sexual abuse and abuse.
Yeah.
And really, I had to go through the hard things and making the admission. And I had to, my parents, the awareness, all of that, I think really came to the forefront. My mom was very just, had to deal with it herself.
Yeah.
And so I was fortunate to be able to have a healing conversation with my mom, my dad, my parents together collectively, I think, started really understanding the effect that had on their kids.
I mean, it's like, you think about it, you're 7, you're 8 years old. That's kind of the rudder of your
yeah.
whole life.
Oh, yeah. Considering I loved Jesus so much.
Yeah, I mean,
we
it's
were
a
going
rudder.
to a Christian Missionary Alliance church. I loved Sunday school. I loved Jesus.
Yeah.
I was living a traditional
Christian
life.
Yeah.
And then my mom deviated into this, my dad moved.
She didn't understand.
No. So, I mean, God had a purpose and a plan and a reason as we're talking and why I had to go through this.
So how did you rediscover God?
I rediscovered God through people.
Okay. In Texas.
I started rediscovering God through people in Colorado.
Okay. Yeah. This is where the other.
Yeah. God started, little by little. I started rediscovering Him through relationships, and I started going to a church that was pretty sound in Highlands Ranch, Colorado.
Colorado, yeah.
I was part of Cherry Hills Community Church.
Oh, cool.
And then God just started bringing some very healthy, loving Christian people. And just slowly, I started opening up my heart.
Had you already met your husband or no?
Yes. Oh, yes.
Okay. Yeah.
Yes.
So you had met him earlier.
Yes, I had met him. And
so you had a journey mate.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, he didn't really understand the magnitude of any of this.
I understand that. But
okay.
Yeah.
But one thing about my husband, he is a very discerning individual, knows his Bible really well, went to Bible college.
Yeah.
And I think he has a great ability to really understand and think. He thinks deeply.
Yeah.
And I think, too, he is also very discerning, and he is a skeptic a lot, too.
Yeah.
And so it is very good that God paired me with him to help me because I didn't have the confidence.
Well, you have to,
I mean, I was like a little baby. I had to step out.
I was wondering if you God anchors you to the right thing. You know what I mean? Like you're anchored to Him, and He's anchored to you. You're moored together.
Yes, and yes.
And your ships are kind of like.
But it was not without warfare.
Yeah, I figured.
I had a ton of warfare. I mean, it was like I found every excuse in the world. No doubt, Satan just was playing on my mind.
So did you go to Colorado for his job or your job, or how did
I was there first.
You were there first.
I was there because I married before, and then I moved to Colorado as a single mom.
Okay.
And then while I was there, I met my husband.
Yes.
And then we got married there.
Yeah. Oh, great.
And then we lived there, and then we eventually relocated here to Kansas. Yeah.
So
Kansas
you said you
area.
worked at a couple different ministries there too. Which ones were those? Was it
Compassion
International?
International for almost 5 years?
So is that the one that sends like food across the world to kids?
Yeah,
I think we actually
releasing children from poverty in Jesus' name.
Yeah, we support them.
Yeah, I came out of corporate America. I worked in corporate America.
Okay.
And then I went to work for Compassion International, but I was still doing business work. I
So
was still
in the corporate side of things, were you like, because I've seen on your, your LinkedIn profile, executive director of, different this and that.
I was in project management,
Okay.
IT management,
Okay.
IT PMO, project
Okay.
management,
Cool, yeah.
manager, those kinds of roles.
Yeah.
And that in itself is a God story too.
Yeah, that's
But
cool.
anyway, that's kind of what I came out of. And then God used my skills
Yeah.
at Compassion International to help them.
That's great. Yeah.
And so that immersed me into working with Christians.
And then you moved over to, was there another organization you worked with?
I worked there at Focus on the Family for a short period of
They
time.
were in Colorado too, right?
Yeah, they are in the same Colorado
same.
Springs.
Focus on the Family.
Yeah.
How long did you work at Focus on the Family?
Almost
for?
a year.
Oh, almost a year.
Yep. And then we moved here.
To Kansas City.
Yeah, to Kansas.
Oh,
yeah,
Kansas.
to Olathe.
Okay, Olathe.
Yeah,
Yeah.
That's
Wow.
okay. You all compare it. Yeah, it's,
I call it all Kansas City Metro. I'm like, it's
and
like
it
it's all
is.
the
It
same
is,
thing,
and that's how we
know?
should portray it because it is
It
that
is
way.
Olathe, yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Anyway,
Yeah.
so, well, that's cool. And then, did you come here for a job, or did he come here for a job, or did you?
Our daughter.
Oh, your daughter.
We came here for our daughter.
Oh, that's great.
And then I had aging parents
Yeah.
that were in Arkansas. So this seemed to be kind of where God was leading us. And then I was starting to build Altered Stories Ministry, which the reason I built Altered Stories Ministry was to help women who'd had stories and needed to share them.
They're untold stories.
Untold stories, or those women who have stories and they want to get them out there. So a lot of the women are authors, some of them are speakers, some of them are pastors.
Wow.
Some of them have come out of some of the hardest journeys and things, but they have to get their story. They feel they have to get their story out there, and God has called them to do it.
So you basically, we're unveiling right now is your altered story.
Yeah, I'm an altered story.
Altered story too.
And Focus on the Family.
Yeah.
They had a broadcast group,
Yeah.
and their millennial group
Yeah.
helped me come up with the name of Podcast in the Ministry.
Oh, that's so wonderful.
It was orchestrated, and God just brought the right people at the right time to help me, and this whole full calling, and people really honestly thought I was kind of cuckoo. Because, I didn't come out of broadcasting background. I started out to be a journalist major early on in my college years.
Yeah.
And then I migrated into business. Okay?
Yeah.
And so this whole dynamic of being a creator, storyteller,
Yeah.
I could handle all the pieces and parts of orchestrating and putting together a nonprofit. I knew how to build teams. I knew how to build organizations. I had the right people that were around me that could come alongside me to help.
Yeah.
And that was all part of the process.
Wow.
So there's quite a story. I'm probably not giving you all the details.
Well, we
but,
don't have the
we
time
don't have
to
a
go
lot
into
of
it.
time
We
here.
don't have the time to go into it anyway. We're giving people brief snippets of these.
I'm writing a book, Nate, and all this is going to be
excellent.
It's going to be a healing memoir book, and it'll bring more details. And I'm working on funding for that and trying to get all that done.
We're trying to give people a taste of a ministry here, and in order to figure out more about this, you're going to have to go watch the show, look at the websites, all that
Absolutely.
stuff. That's kind of what this is about. So, anyway, well, that's great, and so. Let's just talk a little bit about Altered Stories. You started it about 4 years ago, and it seems like a lot of the stories that you're hearing are at least similar to your own, right?
There's a variety.
Yeah.
I've got the woman that heads up the publishing company, Redemption Press, that I've signed a contract with, that I'm going to be working through them to help me, get my book out. She came out of a cult.
Yeah.
And she herself has a great book and a great story of being a cult survivor.
Wow.
And so she's one example. But I have so many different stories out there of women who've come out of child sex abuse, who have come out of domestic violence, who've come out of sex trafficking.
Yeah, wow.
Where it was in a sex trafficking ring from the age of 5 to 21 and has now got a whole ministry. I've got women cancer, healed from cancer,
wow.
miscarriages.
Yeah.
I mean, drug addiction,
Yeah.
all varieties of, loss.
Wow.
Women who have stories of coming out of catastrophic
Wow.
situations with being in hurricanes and losing everything. And I mean, there's a woman that even had a snake bite. She had a ministry she still does in South Africa.
What's she name her ministry? The Snake
No,
Ministry?
it's called Strong Cross Ministries.
Okay, yeah.
But she has a story, my second or third story was of a cobra snake bite. And what happened, what brought her to, where she currently is
Yeah.
and helping these South African women in this whole ministry that her and her husband have in South Africa. And how God used that.
Oh, that's crazy.
So there's so many stories.
That's what I was saying. Like, so
I
diverse.
mean, and my latest guest is out of Toronto, Canada, and she has a story of coming out of sexual abuse, unfortunately, and then how God brought her through. And she's a rapper and associate pastor.
That's so cool.
I mean, and Melissa, her story of date rape and how God brought her to where she is now in the ministry. Some of the other women here in the Kansas City area, Amy Mischelle, who heads up Anchor Her, she has a story of domestic violence and kind of what brought her to her ministry. If not for grace, they had a woman who had an abortion. Done a few abortion recovery stories. I mean, these stories are not easy stories.
Yeah.
And whether you've shared it before or you have a book about it, you still have to process when you share it.
Yeah, it's so true.
And so these stories are really powerful.
Wow.
They're very, very powerful. I mean, and our Facebook shut us down there for a while. I think some of the story content was not meeting the narrative. But, we're back up and
Running.
doing what we need to be doing. And so
I wonder,
it's tough at times to get these stories out.
Yeah, because the Bible says, that we overcome by the power of the word and our testimony. I mean, these are the testimonies. These are like nuclear bombs.
It's so powerful to the healing power of Jesus Christ. I have 4 women out of South Africa who shared their God story.
Yeah.
And these women in South Africa, they're violated. They're violated repeatedly.
Yeah.
And so their God stories of redemption and overcoming and how God has brought them into ministry and is using them. That's the cool thing. It brings hope and healing and support to those that are struggling.
Wow.
And, my one guest, her son was not 30 years, sorry. I don't know how many years he was in addiction. I think it was 13.
Oh, wow.
13 years he was in addiction, and she prayed through that. She has a book called Pursuing Prayer. And her son, God answered her prayer, and he is now a pastor today. So, I mean, these are really redemptive, transformational stories.
So just tell us a little bit about your future vision for Altered Stories. I know that the COVID kind of slowed us down a little bit, but, what is the vision?
Yeah. Well, my vision is that Altered Stories Ministry will find a location.
Yeah.
And at that location, we will be able to host retreats, healing
cool.
retreats.
Wow, yeah.
And that we will also be able to run workshops where we can help those that are interested in getting their God story out there. Maybe they want to, just do writing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or maybe and start the process, or maybe they're ready to get it out there publicly.
Yeah. Yes, absolutely.
So
you want to kind of help with that.
I do, and I want to also have on my staff counselors.
Yeah.
And I want to have authors.
Yeah.
That can help us and have it all tied into the whole evangelistic commission.
Yeah.
Where Jesus says in Luke 8:35 that go out and share what I've done. to you. Now,
Right.
that's paraphrasing,
Yeah.
that scripture. But, the story about the evangelistic commission of the ministry came from Billy Graham's library in North Carolina and the volunteers who prayed over my ministry.
Yeah.
And I went through the library, learned all about what Billy Graham started and all those things. And, I really felt God purposed us to be there. And we had people praying over us, and we were commissioned.
So you're all about helping women tell their stories. I mean, really.
I'm all about
Yeah.
healing,
Yeah.
helping women, encourage women,
Yeah.
getting them to walk free
Yeah.
in their calling.
Yeah.
And that's huge.
Yeah.
And then, just helping people be where
Yeah.
they need to be,
Yeah.
because there's a lot of wounded women out there.
That's
a lot of wounded women, I found out, especially in the Christian circles.
And it's very, what do you call it, taboo in the Christian world. Yeah, specifically. Anyway.
Yeah.
So if someone wants to get a hold of your ministry, or if they want to, come behind you, support you, or join your board, how do they get a hold of you?
Well, they can reach me at msaunders-Gottsch@gmail.com. I'm
Awesome.
actually out there on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Threads. I'm there on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
You can find me. You
Yeah.
can message me, DM me. Those are ways to get a hold of me. My website is www.alteredstories.org.
Oh,
And
cool.
people can go out there and listen to all the episodes, read our blogs, read about
Right,
me, about
right.
the board. And they can donate, all those wonderful things. And I am hopefully bringing on a new board treasurer soon.
Yeah.
And so those are great ways to try to contact me and, learn more about what we're doing. And the Altered Story Show is actually out there in a lot of different platforms, including the Edify app, which is
yeah.
one of the world's largest Christian podcasters apps.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah. So great ways to support us. We need all kinds of support, prayer support. We need funding support. We need
Yeah.
all
Yeah,
those
yeah.
things,
I
like
understand
most ministries.
Yes,
So
I understand that. Well, thank you so much for being a part of the Faith Horizons podcast. We'll get this out there shortly.
Oh, well, thank you. This has been an honor. Thank you for the opportunity.
God bless.
God bless.